The origin of life on Earth thus remains inexplicable as current science stands today. Francis Crick, who was the co-discoverer of DNA, once said that the origin of life on the Earth is, and I quote, almost a miracle, end quote. And in fact, Crick was driven to the position that the origin of life on Earth is so improbable that it probably didn't originate here. He thinks that it was probably seeded from some other planet elsewhere in the universe where life originated, and then life came here already formed, so that life didn't evolve on this planet through chemical evolution. It came full form from some other planet elsewhere in the universe. But of course, that just pushes the question back a notch and leaves you wondering, well, where did that life, that extraterrestrial life, come from? And of course, that's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. We have no way of verifying or falsifying that.
There are various problems with this citation that Crick used. The first problem is that in the footnotes of this podcast's transcript, Crick provides only part of the context in which Crick said that the origin of life is almost a miracle. This is the relevant context in its entirety. Quote, "An honest man, armed with all the knowledge available to us now, could only state that, in some sense, the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle. So many are the conditions which would have had to have been satisfied to get it going. But this should not be taken to imply that there are good reasons to believe that it could not have started on the earth by a perfectly reasonable sequence of fairly ordinary chemical reactions. The plain fact is that the time available was too long, the many microenvironments on the Earth's surface too diverse, the various chemical possibilities too numerous, and our own knowledge and imagination too feeble to allow us to be able to unravel exactly how it might or might not have happened such a long time ago, especially as we have no experimental evidence from that era to check our ideas against." End quote. Second, this is a book from 1981. I myself don't know what progress has been made in trying to answer the question of how life originated on Earth, but how likely is it that a comment from more than 30 years ago is a relevant representation of current scientific knowledge? I'm also uncertain about Crick's claim that Crick positively believed that aliens planted life on Earth. It is certain that in the same book from which Crick has taken his quote, Crick actually proposed such theory, but from what I've read about it, it appears more like he was considering it as a solution to the abiogenesis dilemma, and thought it was a possible and even not too unlikely one. The most important point, however, is that later in his life, Crick seemed to have reevaluated his position about abiogenesis. In 1993, Crick co-authored a paper with Leslie E. Orgel in which they discussed how well their speculations of 1968 about the origin of molecular replication and the evolution of protein synthesis stood the test of time. They also comment on recent scientific discoveries, all of which, by the way, happened from 1982 onwards, so after the book Crick quoted from was published. They write, quote, "How clearly did we anticipate the exciting experimental discoveries of the last decade? We must confess that we did not anticipate them at all. Was RNA the first genetic material? 25 years ago, A system based on polypeptide replication seemed to be the only reasonable alternative. However, we did not consider it likely that such a system ever existed on the primitive Earth. Nowadays, we would have a more open mind about the nature of the first replicating system. End quote. Know that this reconsideration by Crick's part is something you can know about by simply looking at his Wikipedia page. So, the quote Crick gives takes Crick out of context to give a misleading impression, likely portrays an old view of the author, and is representative of outdated science anyway.